Welcome to the Changeroom podcast, a whiff of wellbeing with Minnie and Matt.
Changeroom whiff of wellbeing, and today it's a little bit of an unusual episode we've got today because we've got one of the Changeroom mentors on today, Nam Baldwin, who is again, this is not an easy description to come up with because Nam has so many amazing attributes to share, but we're going to say an excellence coach who works in the area of high performance sport across Olympic teams, individuals that are world champions like Mick Fanning, Steph Gilmore, and again with teams in the sporting area and high performance like the Roosters, Richmond. It's just it's a pretty long list, Nam. So it's a tough one to wind up quickly. And again, I think the other area that we also want to dip into today too as well is that, you know, the high level executive corporates that you're also supporting and the approaches that you're utilizing there as well. So welcome aboard, Nam. It's great to have you back in the change room.
Yeah, pleasure, boys. Always good to see your faces. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Mate, we've been looking forward to it. And I guess one of the standard questions we have, Nam, to kick things off is that we ask people, what's the one thing or two things you've already done today to elevate your well-being?
Gee.
Besides being in that place behind you. Is that your back window?
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
Gee, things are going well.
Yeah, you go well. I've had a cold shower this morning. That was pretty good for me. I enjoy that type of thing. Just switches me. I know it's really cold up in Queensland, but it's one way to do it. There's so many things. I've eaten well. I've eaten unreal. Mini style of eating. I've drank plenty of water. I've gone into my gratitude diary and written what I'm grateful about for today. I've breathed good. I've been practicing my breath work this morning when I woke up. So I've got a whole, there's a take your pick, one of those things.
So now but let's just really, again, because what I like talking to you about is that, you know, there's never anything else but honesty. Are they daily routines and rituals that you have?
Yeah, they've become a daily practice. And I think, the reason why is that I've found over the years, if my habits, things that I like to do that lift my well-being, let me rephrase that. When I do these actions that lift my well-being, because I've done them so often, they've become a habit, it actually sets me up so much better for the rest of the day because I have an energy and a brain's capacity to deal with things better. Because if my habits are really easy to follow through with and they lift my well-being, then I've got so much more room mentally to go through the day. I would hate to wake up and not have a routine. I'd be like, what should I do? And then I'm overthinking stuff straight from the start. And then I might go on the wrong tangent. And then I'll probably get confused and not know how to come back. And, so it's just something that for me, it's become a deliberate practice where now I can't not do these things, but it lifts me. That's the good thing, is that by doing it that way, I feel like I energize myself and I have greater control of how I feel and then how I think.
Yeah, I love it. And consistency is the main thing there, which you just mentioned, Nam. Mate, your main area is high performance. So tell us a little bit about your background in that, and then how did you get started in this sort of realm, many years ago?
Good question. I guess that a lot of it comes down to the breath work that I do with all of us, with the change room, which has such a profound impact on people's performance in any domain. And one of the first guys I worked intensively with that was Pat Rafter. And Pat, 5-set games on courts that were 45 degrees, 2-time number one in the world. What would he want to learn about breathing? But what we discovered was that there was so much on top of what he already learned in his career that now with this information, the breath work, it gave him what he said to me when we were training one morning. He looked at me and he said, "This is giving me the sixth sense." I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I just got this greater understanding around who I am and my thinking and how I feel and how I can regulate those two things with something as simple as my breath. It calms me down. It keeps me regulated when I'm stressed out. I'm sleeping better. And I just have this sense of control with something that's happening 22,000 times a day, which is me breathing. So a lot of it started, the intensity of, or not the intensity, the depths of which I went to started with Pat, along with my partner Devo, that you guys know well, who has a very, very good mind in relation to helping me teach people this information where it's common language, where the footy player understands now the science behind why breathing's so powerful. She helps me break it down into that common language. But again, back to the question, it was Pat and I and Devo working together for 2 years. It was meant to be 6 weeks, but we ended up 2 years. And we unraveled for him the sixth sense. By the way, he's now teaching a lot of the stuff that we went through.
You know what, you're right, because I was in Byron last school holidays, actually, and I caught up with a good mate of mine, Dave Gingell. And he goes, oh, mate, I've been doing all this type of training. I said, yeah, what have you been doing? He goes, mate, I'd go down with Pat Raft, or we go down to the beach and we do, and I said, oh, well, Nam Baldwin. And he goes, oh, yeah, well, that's what he's doing, the tennis ball training. And, so he's really into it and loves it. But following on to what you just mentioned before, breaking it down, or breaking the science down so it's really simple for people to understand. You've got extensive knowledge in all these areas, but you do break it down to create like a simple tool, but in a calming way. The way you deliver things is what I found with listening to you is gets you leaning in straight away. Have you always had that calming effect, even as a kid, or have you learnt to teach that way?
Yeah, so I was a scuba diving instructor from the age of 18, and one of the things that you had to be able to do was, let's say teaching people a course where they could dive to fairly deep levels of, say, 30 meters, 100 feet. You'd have to have a calmness about you, because if you're down 30 meters, which I was, by the way, at North Straddy one year, where a 5-6 meter hammerhead came at us, you as the instructor have got to stay calm in those situations, because you've got 4 atmospheres of pressure on top of you when you're 30 meters under. If someone bolts to the top and holds their breath, they're done. So you've got to represent calmness in your demeanor, how you move, how you portray information on the top, so that when you're down the bottom, they get it. That's where it came from, I believe, is teaching scuba diving.
So, and again, from Minnie and I, it's easy for us to make the assumption that people understand what we're talking about here. But if you can just break down a little bit, Nam, about how these breathing processes help an athlete. How do they help an executive? How do they help individuals, execute at a higher level?
Well, if we look at, what's the most important aspect to our existence, it's oxygen, right? Oxygenation is king, and hence why we breathe so many times a day, 22,000 roughly, give or take, right? So that's a lot. So we're breathing anywhere from sort of 6 to 20, depending on what you're doing, 20 times a minute. And there's a reason for that, because your body wants oxygen. Now, why does it want it? Because, well, that is the main ingredient that generates energy, allows us to make energy to be able to think, feel, and act. So the reason why it's such an important factor is that, without that happening on a high level, you can't really expect performance to work at a very high level. Because if I'm not well oxygenated, if I am breathing erratically and incorrectly, it interferes with things like my heartbeat, which is the biggest signaling device that we have in our body. So if my heart's beating erratically and getting challenged due to stresses, and my breathing is exaggerating that, I've then got information traveling up to my brain going, hey, this is all very threatening. And then my brain starts to, really stress out in how it's going to operate. And I start to function from more of a cavewoman kind of process of react. And then emotions get fired. And now my logical brain kind of just shuts down. And I find it difficult to think logically and reasonably. And setting goals can be challenging. All those things that normally we take for granted. So the breathing aspect, if we get that foundation happening well, especially during moments of stress, we're giving our brain, our heart, exactly what it wants to perform better. And there's a very simple process behind it. And then if we practice, it becomes a habit, and then we can bolt things on top of that. So I hope that I've kind of gone off a bit there, Matty, sorry, but I hope that kind of explains things a bit.
No, it explains it perfectly, Nam. So let's give a little example of Pat Rafter or Mick Fanning or a rugby league player. I know you've worked with the Roosters, as we've already talked about, and other high-level teams like the Blues and Richmond. How does a person at a high level utilize that breathing practically? If you give us an example of how that would actually look.
Cool. So, let's go Pat, let's go Mick. Well, any of them really. I think an element of high performance is to really establish a sense of calmness within yourself amongst intensity. So in the realm that we're talking about this before footy play, doesn't matter. There's a high level of intensity, high level of expectation that can all create a stress response. And we know through breathing that we can regulate certain areas of the body that allows that stimulus, that external or internal stimulus of threat, to become less threatening, and therefore we're able to respond more effectively, make better decisions, and the breath can help us get to that level of operation, both from a physical perspective and a mental perspective. Now, the idea is that deliberate practice needs to happen where you practice in different scenarios, so that when you then go into competition and high levels of stress, you then go into the notion that, hey, I can back myself because I've done it in training, and that supports things like confidence. And so there's layers to this that build over time, so that, again, if we could summarize it, we could just go, well, let's just go back to the breath, and all those little facets will probably fall in line with it. And therefore, getting very good with your breath actually gets you really capable of being confident, gets you really capable of addressing a high pressure, high heart rate scenario where you have to think clearly. It's the breath, again, that will create this anchor, this stabilization within the body and the mind to get the best from yourself.
So Pat Rafters, he's on match point, and it's all level or whatever it is, and he's been going for 5 hours, and he's walking back to do the serve. What would he do?
Well, ideally, he's not going to think much about what he needs to do, because in his training, he would have put in practices that will now be a habit, and it will naturally come through him to be able to deal with that type of pressure. He might occasionally go to his breath and go, let me just really create a calming out breath right now after I've breathed in, to try and just lower my heart rate, which it will, and get my body to send cues inward to say it's okay by softening his shoulders and chest as he walks around. So that then there's this sense of calmness and relaxation coming into his demeanor. And then that is then sending signals literally from his body up to his brain going, we're good, let's go. And the threat now becomes a good challenge rather than a threat. But he did it with his out breath for a moment. And then he might put a couple of other things in place, like, okay, this serve, it's going to be like this. But we've got these tools that we can use that will create these effects. It's like a roll-on effect. If we get the basics right, the fundamentals that we know we can control, then the difficult things are easier to take on and make happen.
And that's the same thing that we're like, if I'm a CEO of a large company or whatever, I'm using the same cues with my breathing if I'm in a gnarly meeting or there's the pressure on in some other area.
Let's go through a cue. Like, most people, you say, well, they breathe just through the chest. How is the proper way to breathe when you're using these techniques? Yeah,
it's really simple. I mean, if we look at a body, we know that the diaphragm, which draws air low into the lungs where most gas exchange takes place, is at the bottom of our chest area where the lungs are attached. So that when we breathe deep, and it doesn't mean taking a big breath, it just means taking a deep breath. The air goes deep. You're relaxing your 6-pack, right? Or your 2-pack or whatever you've got, so that you can use your diaphragm to draw the air in low to get a good amount of air in and therefore oxygen available for you to take off around your bloodstream. And then when you breathe out, it's about, well, where's the tension? Because stress creates tension. And if we want to de-stress, we've got to let go of tension. So if I then soften my chest, my shoulders a little bit as I breathe out, and just let my jaw area become a bit softer and open my eyes into more of a peripheral sort of a vision, when I breathe out, those signals with that out breath softening through the upper part of the chest, they're going, sweet, we're good. We're going into a calm state. So in low, then up a little bit higher, and then let go as you breathe out. Posture is obviously a big thing, keeping good posture. And you get this, you get this good flow of a rhythmic breath that then signals through the body that you are in control. Nose in, nose out at a lower heart rate. And now you can start to use oxygen well. You can start to make better decisions because the biological needs are taken care of.
Nam, again, we could geek out on that all day. You know that you and I often have short conversations. We've been working together for 7 years, and I never fail to find something new about you all the time. So, a couple of years back, I found out you're a Black Dan 37 and about 12 martial arts. What are they again? What are your
Kung Fu.
Yeah.
And it's something it's actually, Matt, I was very quick at the story was, okay, I'm 8 years old. I'm in a school in South Africa during the apartheid where they could beat you as a kid. And I'm in cricket practice and I dropped the ball, right? And I dropped it 3 times, which means you get 3 hits with the cricket bat. So, okay, I get hit 3 hits with the cricket bat, go home. I'm pretty upset because I got another 5 years in this joint. I'm like, holy shit, this is I can barely sit down. And we had a gardener at the time, and he was a 5th Dan black belt. And he taught me how to breathe well. And then I got into martial arts because I was intrigued on, wow, this guy's just showed me how to catch a ball, never dropped a ball in cricket practice again, didn't get beaten.
You've got to get your fingers down, mate.
Yeah.
Like that. You're not going to catch them with your fingers up like that, mate. Anyway, we'll do that next time we get together.
Yeah. So the martial arts side is a way to learn realistic ways of dealing with pressure. Because when you're in the ring, it's real. It's like, okay, this is serious shit. And if I don't protect myself, I'm going to get real hurt. So I went down that venture of martial arts because it was the greatest learning ground for experience that you could possibly have when it comes to things like pressure. I believe was fighting, because it's obviously, it's from a nervous system's perspective, it's the fight flight. And so I wanted to learn to regulate how I responded when I went into that state. Kung Fu and fighting, because one of my sparring partners was a 6-time world Muay Thai champ. It taught me so much, where I just learnt what worked and what didn't.
So again, the second part of that question was, so I looked at your qualifications the other day because I had to get a diva to send them through, and you've got a qualification in kinesiology.
Yeah.
Which you've never shared with me. Not that I'm not upset about it at all. Not one bit. But again, I guess the thing that I want to ask is not only about the kinesiology, but all the other learning that you've been able to accumulate. How does that impact your delivery in what you're sharing with people?
Well, I guess you get to know what's, you understand where they're coming from when they go and tell you stuff about the problems that they've got. I've researched and learnt, and I want to know what you're feeling when you're stressed. And I'm only going to really know that if I take myself into that environment myself and have done the work, the difficult work in that space. So not that kinesiology is difficult, but fighting is. But kinesiology taught me the relationship between our chemistry, our emotions, our physicality, and how each of those corners of a triangle, if you like, represent stability. And if one is out, the other will get loaded. So it taught me about the dynamics of the human genome, how we are put together, that, you know, homeostasis is key, but we can't just address one thing and expect another thing to be okay. We need to look at the whole picture. And so kinesiology taught me the relationship of how we need to look at the whole person, not just their exercise, the physicality. We've got to look at their emotions. We've got to look at their nutrition. And we've got to look at all the aspects of what makes them whole to give them the best opportunity to grow or to change or whatever it is that they're after.
When you go into teams like the Roosters or the New South Wales Blues or, you know, Richmond, what do you look for first, and, you know, what are they looking for as their outcomes as well?
I first of all look for, you know, it's not really a look for, it's more of a feel. I want to make sure that we are in the right space together. And what I mean by that is, you know, what's the culture like? Because is it a culture of learning, or is it a culture of individuality, or is it, you know, so I'm looking and feeling for that when I walk in to then get the impression of how I need to then present. So if it's a very open culture, when I walk in, I'll be greeted and welcomed and, you know, so good that you're here. You know, the Roosters, as you know, I mean, what a great culture. And when I started with them, it was one of the first things we did was we went into a room and we had to I had to ask the group that we're with 5 pretty personal questions. And for me to be in that group of 5 that first day said that they trust me and they accept me, and therefore, cool, I'll be able to educate and help these guys well because of what I'm feeling with that cultural experience that then brings the best out of me too, which is interesting. So, yeah. You might have to ask me the second part because I forgot.
Yeah, no, well, I was just thinking, you know, you deliver this to high executives as well. What do they expect, or, you know, what do you look for when you go into, you know, not in a team environment as well, like individual? Yeah.
Well, I did listen to, we have a bit of an interview before we'd actually begin working together, and I'm just listening for some of their language in relation to the challenge that they want to improve upon. And then that language, the words they're using, tells me a lot about actually what is happening, and they may not even know that. So I'm a lot of questioning around the challenges that they have, a lot of questioning around the environment that they live in, those sorts of things. And then I send them quite a lot of data to fill out for me so I can get a snapshot of the person before I actually even start, or whether I want to start with them.
And do you get them to go through the breathing techniques that you just mentioned earlier, the diaphragmatic breathing? Is that what you do with the team as well, to get their breath work, or they're conscious about their breath work so it becomes automatic under pressure? Yeah.
So we'll start with the very basics, and we'll do some measuring and some testing first, just to see where they're at and their ability to use oxygen, but also deal with the gas that builds up carbon dioxide. So some measurements, and then lay the foundation and keep this building from there.
And you've obviously, you know, you've worked with, you know, great teams that have won grand finals in the past 3 years. So it's certainly, a lot of teams are looking that way at the moment, aren't they? Looking for that extra edge, and that calmness under pressure is probably the most important thing in a team environment when you've got 80,000 fans staring down and it's the last game of the year and you're about to win a trophy. The calmness is key, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, like it's and that's the thing I talk about in these sessions with them is, you know, let's learn to be calm in a calm environment first. So let's teach you how to get to better sleep. Because you have to be calm to be able to sleep. And then we'll take it into rough, and that's me training with them and make it rough and challenging. And then you can take it into hostile, which is then, you know, the grand final. So go through those levels if you like.
Yeah.
Those circumstances, Nam, have a high visibility, and it's great to talk about them. But I'd also love to get from you some good examples of individuals or teams that you've worked with that perhaps nobody knows about, that you have a real sense of pride about in what they've been able to achieve or what the outcomes have been.
Yeah, I got, you know, so from the business world, I'll start with there. I've got some really great clients that, you know, a great business individual has very similar traits and characteristics of a top athlete, whether that be male or female, doesn't matter. And that is the desire to learn and the ability to take feedback. And what I mean by that is that, when they are off the rail, they have this great ability to listen and take the feedback and then apply themselves in a deliberate way. So they're good at deliberate practice. And what I've noticed with a couple is that, they may have had $30 million on the table and there's a decision needs to be made, but it might mean that they lose part of who they are if they take that money. They lose their sense of self-worth or character or what they stand for. And I've had some massive breakthroughs with individuals that have gone, nah, I don't want that because it's interfering with what I represent as a human. And that's honorable to me, that they stand by their word and they stand by who they believe they are rather than all this cash, which is very difficult when that's on the you can imagine. But the work that we do is about building the individual and helping them grow to, when it comes to the end, do you have any regrets or are you happy with your decisions? And you live with that purity and that honesty and that authenticity. And that's what we do a lot of is unpacking that with the stresses of what happens in their world every day. Can they be the person they want to be and stand for what they want to stand, regardless of losing 30 million, gaining 30, it doesn't matter. Can I be me and be whole to that, how I respond and so on? So that's a great thing to be around and to feel and hear a lot of those stories and help people progress in that space. And then it could just be an athlete that was 22 in Australia and the ranking system, and now they're number one in the world. And you just work with them for 2 years, and a lot of it is working with their identity, actually, again, who they are, and allowing them to discover that they are good enough. And if they have the raw skill, it's the character that we need to work on that needs to come through to be able to apply that skill under pressure and under expectation and so on. And working with that type of person it's liberating. It's it's inspiring. It makes it a necessity for me to do my work on my side of the bargain and research more and give them more and be very curious around how far can we go and let them feel that curiosity so that they're like, whoa, this is like being in a candy shop. What are we going to discover? So that's always a drawing thing for me is people that work well in return, and you get some amazing results. I mean, humans, we know that we're amazing at what we do, but so much of it's mental and physical combined. If we can get those two things working well together, as we know, wow, what a difference. I mean, I've watched you both, from an outside looking in, and you both inspire me to be better because of what you guys have done. So, it's great to be a part of this tribe, if you like, and then people I work with.
You've sparked a couple of questions in me there, Nam. And first of all, I want to go back to what you said about the leadership side of things. And we're in a pandemic at the moment, and I guess with that comes a lot of social and economic consequences that leadership are impacted by, right? And you work with people at a leadership level. What are some of the fundamentals that you've been able to observe in people that do it really well with all this stuff going on, and people that probably not so well?
Yeah. First of all, what can you control? Get really clear on the controllables and what you can do, and get really clear on that, and then get your team clear on that. Get to the truth, get to the bottom line, as in, how's this going to impact us, but also making sure that the people in your group feel that they matter and that you care for them. And then there's a sense of belonging, and then you really get momentum with them helping you too. So that's a real important piece. And then also, taking care of the fundamentals. This is the house that we live in. The body is our home. So make sure that your home is in good working order, because the outside of our home is pretty chaotic. So if this is healthy and make sure that that's taken care of every day, you'll make better decisions. And then being aware of mindset. is it fixed or is it open? Is it fixed or growth? And helping them with that.
I'd like to build something into that. Sorry, Minnie, I'll keep building questions in here. I guess in this time, and I'll look at myself where, you're working from home and then there's a lot of things that have been punched together. I know you and I have had a conversation about this in the past about compartmentalizing things and understanding that separation of that this is an issue for work and this is not a personal issue. How do you coach that?
Yeah, good way to do it is again, I find anyway, explaining what compartmentalizing is, because that's quite a big word that a lot of people trip over just saying it.
Yeah, I know.
And then obviously understanding, that, and once that's really clear, that's really how our brain works too. If we look at the way a brain functions, it only focuses on certain things at given times. And if it focuses on everything, we'd be going nuts. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do is to, again, be really clear on where our attention needs to be, so that should it be something that we cannot control, okay, so we don't want to put too much attention on that, because it's going to stir things up. But then also being aware of, again, tasks. What is my task for today and how am I going to get that done? But in that notion too, when things become challenging or stressful, it's about helping yourself resolve that conflict of why it may be a stress. And that will be through conversation and even diarising stuff and jotting stuff down, so that you don't let things pile up one on top of the other, so that then you cannot compartmentalize. So the fact that the dishes aren't washed doesn't just send you off into this rage, because that's just that last thing. And then everything becomes too stressful. So it's about keeping perspective, but that will mean making sure that if you're working at home, you have time frames where it's work, and then you have a time frame where you have a quick break to reset some of those things that you've been working on, where your brain can calm down, move, have a break, hydrate, move, okay, go back. And then at the end of the day, you tidy up your desk like you would maybe at work, but you also jot down things that you may have done well today. Give yourself your own feedback, things you need to improve on. And then what am I going to do tomorrow for my business, but also for me personally, to stay in this good state? And jot that down, get it clear, so that when you wake up, there's a direct amount of certainty to your brain of what you need to do when you're doing it. So preparation. Big things.
So now I'm going to rewind back a little bit in one of your responses before, and how having people that are engaged and want to find a better way provides you with the opportunity to do extraordinary things with them. I'm going to challenge you on one thing there, is how that must feel, because in the change room, we quite often experience people that have been injured for a long time, can be quite cynical at stages, And I've seen you walk into rooms where everyone's sitting back like this, and oh my God, what's this going to be about? And within a week, some of the processes that you've shared with them have improved their sleep by 50%. Have allowed them to regulate their pain. When you look at the results that you've achieved in the change room and what we've done collaboratively, surely that also, sometimes overcoming people's resistance must also be something that you get a lot of joy out of.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm going to just sit with that question for a bit. I do, because I guess this is probably a bit corny, but you get to the truth. You'll find the way, right? You get to the truth, you'll find a better way, as we always say. But it's about getting to the truth, and then it's about doing the work that can be difficult to get to the truth. And when I say the truth, it is whatever path needs to be taken to grow, to change, to get better sleep. And then test it. I test things myself. Like, as you guys know, I do the work. I just, whatever I teach, I've done it myself time and time again. So I know it works for me. And then I do the research scientifically and go, is there evidence to suggest that what I'm telling them is truthful from a scientific perspective? Because, you don't want to leave people down the rabbit hole and then, oh, it was just a good idea. And it, you know, so I guess with the resistance is, I know with the truth that isn't necessarily from me that we're going to get a great outcome here, because with that resistance, there's an energy. And I reckon when you get that resistance and you turn it round, it's, I'm all in. So you can get people all in more if they're really resistant, and then you manage to just educate them, show them, let them feel it, and then they turn around, all that resistance now becomes enthusiasm.
You mentioned something earlier in your past answer, which I think is really important, is being able to switch off and relax the mind. And that was one thing that I was pretty good at as a rugby league player, is that, you know, leave training and actually unwind and not think about what I need to do the next day until I'm preparing for the next day. And a lot of professional sportsmen, it's 24/7 with them. Or what about even, you know, CEOs or high clients that are just working, and then they come home and they're still on their emails and they're working. I think, do you find that when you start with clients or teams or individuals, when athletes as well, getting them to switch off is probably vital as well as the training part of it?
Totally. And I think I'd probably just change that wording, switch off. I encourage them to wind down.
Yeah.
And that's a process. So again, when you give them the process of how to wind down and looking at then a time frame of winding down before bed, like 3 hours, you can then give them simple tools and tips to follow that will allow that process to happen. So it's not such a big, right, now I've got to switch off. It's like, no, let's just wind down. And then that's a great way to help people get into that calmness and, you know, learn from themselves.
What about your personal approach, Nam? You know, what are your fundamentals for a good, healthy life?
Yeah, I you know, it's one of those things where I do, again, practice what I preach. So for me, you know, the mind is a very important aspect. I guess because I've worked a lot on the physical for many, many years. Now it's more of a mental aspect of, you know, the meditation, the breath work, which is physical too, but it also correlates with how we think. And then in the morning, if I could sum it up, in the morning, it's about generating energy and getting clarity and, you know, fueling my body in different ways to then take on the day. And then during the day, it's about addressing it's work, it's about addressing what's most important. It's about the physical, what's most important today. It's about the mental, what's most important today, and have little routines and rituals, whatever you want to call it, that I do that gets the best out of those areas. And then, you know, it's all a lot for me, it's about having fun. So it's about where can I inject some fun in this and making sure I get that regularly from a business side, where every 12 weeks, I'll have at least a week off.
Yep.
To reset, have adventure, have fun. And then the important thing for us is sleep, you know, the quality of our sleep. So we eat really good. So all the biological requirements.
Oh, we just lost you there for now.
The other side of things. Yeah.
We just lost you there for now. Can you just replace it? Repeat that last bit.
Yeah, the interaction, so connection. You know, really starting to improve on connecting with people, and as best as I can to get that human connection met, where, you know, that seems to really create a shift in how you feel dramatically when you hang out with good mates or all new people. Doesn't matter, but that's a thing I've identified in the last couple of years. What I want to improve upon is connection with people and so on.
So how do you do that, Nam? I've got a couple of questions that come out of that, but the first thing is that, you know, that like everyone, we can sit here and I'm now, rather than myself, putting myself in the position of people tuning in and going, okay, I think human connection would be a really good thing for me to, you know, to do. What processes do you do to identify? Because I can go, if I like, I can go to the pub around the corner and that's probably not the human connection that I'm looking for. Well, no, I'm not, and I'm not being derogatory to people that like to do it, but I'm just saying because of, I've had health issues in the past, and that's not going to actually help me find a better way. So what are the other techniques that you would advise to that like-minded tribe going?
Well, that's exactly it. You kind of answered it there. I'm aware of who I am and what I enjoy, and then I want to hang with the people that are like-minded, because then, we have great conversation, and the things that I love to do, I know that I'm going to hang with people that are very similar. So the experiences that we have are varied, because I like variety, adventurous, and great conversation will follow that, obviously, because we're like-minded. So it's about finding those people around you that are similar minded to you. I believe this is for me. And then also, I tend to want to, in a group, I'll see if I can ask more questions than say stuff. So like, I'm talking a ton here, but normally I'd like to ask more questions and help others speak, and then be interested in why they're saying things, and kind of get that flow going around questioning. But then experience is a king for me. So yes, I want to catch up with people, but I want to have an experience with that catch up somewhere, doing something.
Okay. Mate, I want to press you on this now, because I know that I always love learning new stuff about you, Nam, and there's always something comes from somewhere every single time. So, all right, let's talk about your next holiday or these experiences. Rather than just say, I like having experience, what are we talking about? Elaborate, cough up when I hear about it.
Yeah, so it could be, like the image behind me. It's like going to crazy, crazy places, surfing, doing things that are going to push my limits, whether that be a hike where I got to climb something or do something that it's just engaging on that edge of my comfort zone. Like the other day, I shouldn't have done it, but I went hydrofalling, the electric one with the motor, the prop on the bottom.
Yeah.
And it was my third go, but I ended up going 15 Ks, and now my hip's out. But it was so good because it was the edge of my ability, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I got stuck into it with a mate. And that was just so fun, but it came at a cost. But it's about I like things that are kind of on the edge to a degree, but then I like also, hanging out with people that are really like you, Matty, really into meditation and discussing the depths of that, which is on the edge of my comfort zone again, because I don't know a great deal about it. So it's about exploring that outer range of where I'm comfortable to a degree. There might be comforts involved, but it's still going then and doing things that are out of my comfort zone. Free diving to 50 meters, abseiling, skydiving, whatever. Let's just experience something that's a bit out there.
So you and I will enjoy each other's company when you come back from your adventures. The other thing I really want you to share, Nam, because it's something I really admire about you, is the way that you accumulate mentors or your quest for new knowledge. So I'd love you to share what are your, where are some of your key mentors or learning at the moment?
You.
I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. But if I look at why you were very honest with me when I first went to the Warriors. I flew over. It was my first break into the NRL, and I remember the conversation we had, and it was really fair. You said, if they don't like you, you're going to have to fly home. You're here for a week, but let's just see how you go. So you were very real and very honest, and I really enjoyed that side of being pushed and going, okay, I got to step up. And that to me was great. But at the same time, you were so free with your information and learnings that there wasn't any kind of hierarchy with us. It was just we're on the same sort of level, which was really refreshing. So you're one of them, and then Mini too. The way that Mini's come out of adversity with his difficulty, but followed a particular way of exercising and eating. And, you know, it's always great to be in that space and ask some questions, but I don't even have to with you, Minnie, because I watch you when you present. I'm like, every time I'm like, wow, that is just unbelievable what changes you can get and then other people get. So I'm looking for people that have been through either, you know, a breakthrough of some form, whether that be difficulty or into a realm that is unusual, and they're getting great benefit from that. So with you, Maddie, with the meditation and so on, that's really drawn me in, because I know that it's such a powerful part of us becoming the best we can be, or letting go of the worst of us.
Yeah.
in those two things. Mm-hmm. And then also, you know, the people I work with, because of the level that they're at, they become almost my mentors too, because in many respects they're almost like a mirror. You know, they're climbing their ladder, so am I. They're challenged by similar things, pressure, stress, so am I. So I love to work with people in that domain that want more, and they're looking for more ways to explore their potential. And that's not a great way to use, but they're looking for more ways to become happier with less in many respects. And so therefore my mentors and even my partner Devo is one of my greatest coaches, because she's so brutally honest, and she's been through a lot of adversity and come through it, that then there's truth to what she does and how she applies herself. And that's the other thing too, is the truth. You know, I want to get to the truth of stuff.
As people understand more about their own health and fitness, you know, your services are in high demand and growing and growing. You know, what's next for you? How do you deliver more programs, or what's in the pipeline? What are you thinking with all what you deliver?
Yeah, so we're building an online wellbeing and performance program that's got many aspects to it, where ideally in time that's going to be online, where it's, you know, for anyone in particular, and we're trying to make it so that it will hit a very, very high performer and allow them to grow, but also someone who's just breaking into becoming healthier and wants to perform a bit better. So it's kind of that it's a big spectrum, but we're trying to make it as easy to understand the depths of being very, very good at what you want to do, whether it be health or performance, but also then if you're struggling and you know you're not sure about stuff. So it's developing that, and it's being developed. It's not ready for online just yet. And then I take on X amount of clients in a given period, and that's obviously, it's great to have new ones coming through. So I'm open to new clients, but it might just be that there is a bit of a waiting list until I can really get to them. It's not long, but you know that's just how I operate. So I can give people my best. If you get too many, then it doesn't work. Yeah, for sure. So hopefully that's answered that question.
What about the Olympics coming around? I know you've done a fair bit of team with Olympic work with Olympic teams in the past. Is that going to manifest again for you next year?
Yeah, still working with a lot of Olympians. So Olympic sailing team in different divisions, two or three different divisions. And the sailors are interesting. You know, they're very, very fit humans, and they have to be very switched on mentally for what they do. So they're great to work with. Jess Fox, she's the Olympic slalom canoeist, 7-time world champ, working with her. Still working with Steph Gilmore. So I'm still working with a number of Olympic individuals and teams. And obviously if it happens next year, then we're ready to go. If it doesn't, well, we love working together, so we just keep doing it.
That's awesome, mate. So for the listeners, where can people find you? Website, socials, where can they find you? So
I've got a website, which is my name, www.nambaldwin.com. That's my website. We've got another website, which is www.equalize.com.au, which is more of the breath training side of things that links to that. Social media is just my full name, Nam Baldwin. I'm not a tremendous social media guy, so I'll post stuff, but it's not all the time. And then obviously on LinkedIn, I think I'm on LinkedIn as well, Facebook, all those under my name. So pretty easy to find.
Awesome, mate.
Yeah, for anyone else too that is interested, they can find Nam on the changeroom.info if you want to get to there and see some of the amazing results that he's had there as well.
And we finish off with one last question that we normally ask all our guests, but you've probably answered this, which is, what are your 3 or 5 things that you need to do daily? And that's, I've listened to you speak many a times, and your win the morning strategy is just awesome. I practice that as well.
Yeah, well, there's one. Win the morning. There's a good chance you'll win the day, and that's a simple process. Oxygenate, hydrate, invigorate, move, anticipate. How do you need to be? Appreciate, what are you grateful for, and then anticipate what have you got on, who do you need to be, and just get that into a process. I need to move a fair bit, and if I don't, my energy drops, obviously, because life to me is movement, so that's a big factor.
It's dancing, isn't it, that you do?
I do a lot of dancing, Matty. Yep, I pride myself from your moves that you've done.
Well, you're on video now, so I mean, getting towards the end, you may as well break out. Yeah. Come on, don't fall out the back window. That's all.
Yeah. Getting outside is a big one for me too. Yeah. Being in nature a lot, barefooted. I think that's a fairly big one of many people that I hang with, but just connecting to earth and getting into nature and grounding myself and understanding that I am human and part of the universe, and that's an important piece for me too. Freddie would agree there. Freddie Fittler would agree with that.
100%. Yeah, he loves the barefoot. Yeah. Well, so,
good fella,
mate. That is awesome. Some great info as always. We've heard you speak many a times, but there's always something that you pick up and learn about when you speak, Nam. So thanks for coming on the Change Room podcast, mate.
Yeah, thank you, boys. Loved it.
Thanks, Nam. Yeah, looking forward to doing some skydiving together.
Not. Thanks for listening to the Change Room podcast, a whiff of wellbeing with Minnie and Matt. For more information about the Change Room, please head to thechangeroom.info.